I'm Travis Voss. I'm the Director of Innovative Technologies with SMACNA. We picked a topic called Contractor Fueled, and the idea there is some of our contractors are experiencing some waste and some delays in schedules based on improper trade stacking and sequencing. What we're trying to examine is, from us, a mechanical contractor, sheet metal contractor standpoint, we always will blame it on the drywall or the wall folks.
I'm responsible for putting out a white paper of all these findings based on this trade stacking challenge that SMACNA is experiencing. Electri is also putting out more papers. So really the idea is, again, to partner with these organizations that are coming and working with us. Also CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association, all these different groups are coming together with the intent of then really putting out initiatives, putting out reports, and we want this to be the place where they come and experiment and learn and share their findings from here.
Hopefully we can use these white papers and these conversations to get ahead of the problem, so we make some changes within the process of the industry to avoid them in the future.
I was in the group Contractor Fueled, where we were working on a problem statement to try and help wall contractors and mechanical contractors figure out how to work with each other, high level.
How might we streamline the disjointed profitability production control strategies between all trade subcontractors in ways that define trade subcontractor, GC, and engineering disciplines a standard measurement of profitable production value so that projects don't accelerate one trade without considering the net impact on all stakeholders?
And what it turned into as we worked through the problem solutions and kind of looked to the future state we want to inspire, we realized that contractor feuds on job sites, subcontractor feuds on job sites, come from a lot of times competing profitable forecasts at time of bid. So I'm gonna take you to our project in Chicagoland. We're at a hospital where we got sub-wars going on. We got a trade contractor that's a drywaller. We got a mechanical contractor that is Kurt's business, and they're out there fighting in the project that's already been awarded. So what we realized is we go into these projects where there's estimates that are based on pro formas that are basically spreadsheets, numbers applied to the cost, right? The cost of doing business. So Kurt shared with us that when he estimated this job, his success factors, his profitability was measured or forecasted on, he needs to be able to put in 200 pounds of ductwork per hour across the project. So each zone of the project, each floor plate, that's what he needs to be able to hit to be able to get his profitability and make sure his company's healthy and his team's taken care of. So me as the drywaller, I'm out here, taping and mudding. I need to be able to get my profitable productivity calculation put into place by making sure that I get 1,000 linear feet per day for my crew of 4. So here comes the sub wars. So what we looked at is trying to kind of take some of the breakdowns of tax steering and project planning, which Kurt had not necessarily seen in his region because it's not being used on most projects. So this project is a traditional project where the owners bid it out to the market, where there's a lot of trade contractors, but there's not a lot of trade workers. So we all come in and we eat up the capacity. We go in low bid, or we bid it. The GC's here stuck in the middle trying to say, okay, I got numbers now. How am I going to actually put it into time? The age-old story of tell me how much it costs and when you're going to get it done, and then we'll double the costs and double the timeline once we actually get started. So we converge to the GC through the bid process is using numbers that show forecasted profitability rates that are not realistic unless we actually have true coordinated trade contractors on the job site working for each other, because the GC is not going to be making sure that the drywaller and the trade contract or the mechanical contractor are actually working profitable, because they don't care. They've got a lump sum bid, keep the number the same. And when you guys get pain points where you're working across each other, you're going to fight me for a change order, or you're just going to eat the cost. That's the age-old way that we do business.
I think an interesting part of our discussion, and Bill, we were talking about this at lunch, I think you can really help us on a future roundtable, is the trade contractor itself, if they don't realize that we need to track for ourselves this level of very detailed TAC planning and other location-based planning, regardless of whether or not a GC requires you to, because that's the only way you're going to have the data after the fact to now have this conversation at the beginning of the job to start fixing this vicious cycle. But as we talked about, like in Bill's case, it took a very progressive owner saying, we need you to do this, and then you do it, and then you go, oh, there's value, so now you do it for yourselves. And it's sort of like, I think that is the story, right? And so it's like, we'll figure out what is that story of how we convince ourselves, or just how do we make it easier once a couple have figured out how to do it in a way where you can see value. Because it's like, it's getting over that hump of seeing the value that seems to be why people aren't doing that level of granular tracking and planning. And so it's just, how do we collectively as trades, whether you're installing windows or drywall or mechanical or electrical, it's the same concept of how you think about TAC planning and how we should all be planning and measuring our impacts against each other to share. Yeah, what do you got, Travis?
And what you said there was like collectively as trades. That's one of the things we talked about. Yes, it's a SMACNA initiative that we're trying to provide this information to our members to either defend a change order, or next project comes out and says, if you treat me this way, this is my price. If you treat me this way, this is my price. But it works the best if we as SMACNA can start to work with the other associations, and we all can kind of think of this the same way, so we can all collectively go back to our GCs and CMs and like, if we can behave well, right, we can all make more money. And I think that's kind of the power of working through the CPC and making it more of a, not just making it a SMACNA only. Yes, SMACNA will take the lead, we'll produce the paper, but then start to work with the Electries and the NECAs of the world, the MCAs, whatever, all of the trade associations to be like, this is the way we as trade contractors are starting to look at this.
How can we give simple tools to trade contractors to help them begin to align their own financials, whether it's their estimate, their productivity rates that are carried in the estimate, their job cost reviews, their company P&Ls, so that industry-wide, region-wide trade contractors that are in the same discipline can begin to look at the cost of doing business for a client in a region, for a project type, and compare those financials to begin to pull out those pain points in ways that can then translate back up to owners and GCs and give them effective strategies to change the contracting process and ensure that total project stakeholder profitability and success is the result we get to every time. We have this map here. So going up here is work in progress. So zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. This is, imagine a hospital straight floor plate. Here's time across the bottom. This is 1 week of work. So Kurt needs to work at this rate right here at 1,300 pounds in place per day, while the drywaller needs to put in 1,300 linear feet a day. So at the end of that week, his success puts him way ahead of where Kurt needs to be. And so they're both chasing their model, what success looks like. The sequence and the schedule is not being coordinated, so they're fighting each other instead of helping each other. So this is where critical path method scheduling comes in and actually creates an antagonistic relationship if it's not sequenced properly, because in reality, we talked about some strategies that actually happen on job sites that are not put into the specs, they're not put into the contract documents, but the trade contractors are out there working together because they'd rather just get it done in a way that's more fun sometimes, or just get off the job. So they'll do things like pull out priority walls, or they'll coordinate running top tracks so that the mechanical contractor can use his scissor lifts instead of ladders. So they're doing these things and coordinating these things on site. It's not mandated in the specs, it's not mandated in the bids. The GC sometimes doesn't care, but who cares are the trade contractors out there, because they need to make sure that their companies are healthy and they're doing well. So how do we get the owners to facilitate better project coordination and create better environments where trade contractors can be more profitable and ultimately save the owner more money? Well, what we talked about is we don't look at the cost of doing business across trade contractors and sectors. We're all looking at different models. So one mechanical contractor might look at his profitability production as 200 pounds per foot. Another might be looking at, I need to put this amount of square foot in place.
The reason we got to that discussion that he reminded me that I did not talk about is in our root cause analysis that was definitely very messy, but there was something valuable here in finding that disconnect between the banker and the builders, and the fact that we see so much waste in day-to-day in what we do, but we struggle to articulate the bottom line impact of those wastes, and just cannot overemphasize enough the importance of making time to measure that waste, because if we don't do it, we're never going to fix that problem. And I think, yeah, so many things can come back to that point right there. So I will leave it with that unless there's any other questions. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Let's get to the next one.
If you're out there and you're curious about how you can up-level your ability to innovate, and you care deeply about construction technology and construction integrations, this is the place to be. It's a very special atmosphere. It's not, yes, getting the work done is priority number one, but right behind it, man, is building a community, and this conference does it in spades.